Grandpa Lobo on the drum. Yeah.
And you are on.
The meeting of the Accountability of Finance and Personnel will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Herndon.
Present.
Director Miller.
Present.
Director Taylor's logging on to the system. Director Woodward.
Here.
Thank you. And Chair Phillips.
Present.
We have 4 present.
The Secretary will now lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. Members, please mute your devices.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now have an announcement regarding the interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas noches. Esta junta se transmitirá en español para aquellas personas que lo requieran. Si usted quiere acceder a esta junta en español, puede marcar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar la clave 937-0740-3346. Le repito, si quiere acceder a esta junta en español, por favor marque al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marque la clave de la junta 937-0740-3346. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Due to the contingencies of the COVID-19 public health pandemic, this meeting is being conducted virtually. Board members are participating remotely and the Central Services Building is closed to the public. However, in order to allow as much public participation as possible, in addition to our normal practice of broadcasting our meetings on radio station WYMS 88.9 FM and live streaming them on the MPS website, we are broadcasting this meeting on the MPS YouTube stream, the link to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. We will now move on to our items of business. As stated in the public notice, individuals who wish to speak were required to register in advance. I ask those waiting to speak, please remain on the platform until you are called upon. Although we are on a virtual platform, we still follow Robert's Rules of Order, which dictate that all comments should be directed toward the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from board members and administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. As always, written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Written comments may be submitted to the board, the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201, or fax them to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items or attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item 1 is action on monthly personnel matters, action on classified personnel transactions, action on certificated appointments, action on leaves of absence, the report on certificated resignations and classified retirements, and the affirmative action report. The administration recommends that the board approve the promotions, appointments, and leaves as listed in the attachments to this item.
Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes. Good evening, Chair Phillips and members of the committee. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. We are asking for your approval for the monthly personnel items as well as the reporting items that are before you. Carol Edie is here with me this evening, and between the two of us, we can answer any question that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to comment or ask questions? All right, seeing none. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, there is no public testimony or written testimony at this time.
All right, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? President Miller.
Chair Phillips, I move adoption of the administration's recommendation.
All right, we have the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Chair, will you please call the roll?
On President Miller's adoption of the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item 2 is action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, and the limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. The administration recommends that the board, 1, authorize the individuals to be promoted, reassigned, or reclassified, receive the salary increases or decreases as listed, and be appointed to the classifications indicated in the attachments to this item to be effective as indicated in the dates in the attachment. And number 2, approve the LTE contracts exceeding 60 days pursuant to Administrative Policy 6.23, Parent 4, Parent B, to be effective as indicated.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we are asking that you approve administrative appointments, items that are before you, and we are prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Phillips,
Yes, Vice Chair Herndon.
I must recuse myself on voting for this item.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, note that Vice Chair Herndon has recused herself.
So noted.
Do we have any comments or questions by committee members? Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
We have no public testimony, either in writing or request to speak on the platform at this time.
All right, what is the pleasure of committee with respect to this? President Miller.
I move adoption of the administration's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On Director Miller's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to administrative appointments. Director Herndon has recused herself. Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
And Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, 1 recusal. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item number 3 is action on the request for an early start date for Ronald Wilson Reagan College Preparatory High School, grades 9 through 12, Rufus King International High School, grades 9 through 12, and Casimir Pulaski High School, grades 9 through 12 for the 2021-22 school year. The recommendation is that the board approve the request for an early start date of no earlier than August 2nd, 2021 for Reagan, Rufus King, and Pulaski, and direct the administration to submit a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction prior to the January 1st, 2021 date for an early start date for the 21-22 school year.
Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, in alignment with state statute, we are requesting your approval to submit a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction for an early start date for the 2021-22 school year for the following IB schools, high schools, Reagan, King, and Pulaski. The request will cite that the post September 1st, 2021 start date conflicts with the curricular requirements of the IB program. This request will be made to the Department of Public Instructions prior to January 1 of 2020. Dr. Jennifer Smith, former IB principal and current regional superintendent, is with us this evening. And between the two of us, we can answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comment or ask questions? Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no written testimony or individuals on the platform to speak on this item.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item?
I've had my hand up.
Oh, I apologize, Director Woodward. I didn't see your hand.
Okay. Okay, I would like to ask a question regarding, well, we don't know what it's going to be like. Right now, we are virtual, right? But in case we are using transportation by 2021, I was wondering, would there be any additional transportation costs for this item?
Administration, Director Woodward's question is in terms of this early start. What does this mean?
Chair Phillips and members of the committee, as of this point, we will not have additional costs, but that cost is unknown, depending on how many students we are able to get on a bus when we are moving into phase 2 and phase 3. So that may create we have a 3-tiered bus system, and it may increase the tiers. So that is kind of where we're at right now. And that will be dependent on the public health crisis that we are in right now.
Any follow-up?
No.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Secretary, please note that Director Taylor has joined us.
So noted.
Any further comments or questions by committee? What is the pleasure of the committee? Vice Chair Herndon.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration.
All right, we've got a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to accept the recommendation of the administration relative to an early start date for Reagan, Rufus King, and Pulaski. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item number 4 is a report with possible action on strategies used to maximize fiscal year 2021 state aid. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, the item that is before you conveys important information regarding strategy to maximize fiscal year 2020-21 state aid the district receives. With me this evening is Chief Financial Officer Martha Kreisman, who will provide additional information regarding these strategies. At this time, I will turn it over to Martha.
Hello, Chair Phillips, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. At the end of the year, we look at our financials and where we stand. And if we're able to pay into some places that would count as expenditure for the current year, we do that. And it's a way of being able to pay for some expenses that we have that are more long-term, such as our OPEB liability. And it's also a way to save some money for capital improvement projects so we can put into our capital improvement trust. And the state counts these payments as expenses in the year that we're putting the money towards that. So that would have been fiscal year 20. And in doing that, we have to calculate a shared cost, and the state reviews that. Our shared cost is used in a calculation that creates our state aid on our revenue limit. So if you remember, our revenue limit is made up of state aid and property tax levy. The more we maximize our state aid, then we don't have to tax property tax owners as much. So we want to try to maximize our state aid. And we were able to do that by adding more money to our OPEB above and beyond what we were going to pay due to our liability. So we paid an extra 13 million to the OPEB, and we also were able to put 6 million into the long-term capital improvement trust, which can help us with our ongoing educational maintenance. If you have any questions, we'll take those.
Thank you. Do committee members have comments or questions? Madam Secretary, do we have members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request to speak on this item, nor do we have any written testimony.
What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Vice Chair Herndon? Oh, sorry, she was just raising her hand to write, not raise her hand to speak. President Miller? Nope. There is no pleasure in regards to this item for this. President Miller.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is a report and no action is required.
Oh, great. Thank you. So seeing that there's no action required, Madam Secretary, what is the next item on tonight's agenda?
Item number 5 is action on a request to carry over the FY20 school district deficit and surplus amounts. The recommendation is that the FY20 school deficit and surplus amounts be carried over, as noted in the attachment to this item, to FY21, and that the schools with deficits from FY20 pay back the amounts within 3 to 5 years and not more than 5 years.
Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee. Each year at this time, the administration shares information with the board regarding school deficits and surplus amounts. We have continued to improve our situation in terms of reducing the number of schools with deficits as results of increased fiscal oversight, monitoring, and guidance. At this time, I will ask Lynn Rule to provide some additional information, and after which we will be happy to answer any question that you may have. Lynn?
Hello, Chair Phillips, members of the committee. I'm Lynn Rule, Director of Financial Planning and Budget Services. The item authorizes the carry forward of deficits and surpluses for our schools. For the majority of our schools, the deficits were relatively small. There are 5 schools that did go over the 3% threshold for deficits. And you will see in the attachment, there are short descriptions of what the main reasons were for those. But if you look, then the next 3 pages are schools that actually had carry forwards. So our schools are actually doing quite a bit better than they have in the last couple of years. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you. Committee, do we have any questions in respect to this item that does require action? President Miller.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. I just want to ask Ms. Rule if the present financial state of affairs because of COVID-19 presents any particular problems for the schools that do have a budget deficit, and you know, are there any problems for any schools because of the present financial situation, you know, based on the COVID situation?
As far as the deficits and the carry forwards are concerned, I think the only thing it did is actually help schools a bit because they didn't spend as much at the end of the year. So it actually helped a number of schools get out of deficit. But from this year to next year, now that's going to be the question, and we'll have to see where we're at that time.
Thank you.
Director Woodward.
Yes. And one item there, you said there's $5,000 surplus applied to all the schools except for the instrumentality charter schools. Can you explain me why it's different? There's a limit except as adjusted contract for instrumentality charter schools.
Yes, basically they are, I'm sorry. The instrumentality charter schools are allowed, based on their contract, to carry forward their full amount of surplus.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Chair Phillips.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you. I heard you guys say that they have the 3 to 5 years if they in deficit to pay it back. What happens is within that time period, they don't have the allotted money to break zero or have a surplus. Then what's the tentative plan for that?
Administration.
There's a few different things. Number one, any school that's in deficit, especially those who have the higher deficits, are put under oversight, which means any purchases that are made are reviewed by the regional for that school. So it's basically adding on a second approver for any purchases for that school. So that helps them to keep from going over. As far as if they do not make the 3 to 5 years, what we do is we take their total deficit, we divide it by 3, and that's the minimum amount they have to pay back. So if their deficit keeps going up, obviously it's going to be much harder for them to cover that. As I said, for the most part, almost all of our schools actually went down this year, though.
Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we have a rolling scale, whether it's 1% over, 2%, 3 or 5%, or even 10%. And there's different things that the regional superintendent has to do around oversight to ensure that this deficit doesn't continue to grow. And we work to make sure that it is paid off within those 3 years. So therefore, it's almost impossible that it's not paid off. They could still occur a new deficit, but also there's some strict oversight that goes along with that to make sure that the schools are moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, quick follow-up. When you said this year, of course, most of them had a surplus. I'm taking it in due to COVID and not being into the school buildings, maybe for last school year, so they didn't have to buy as much supplies and purchases. But then also, is that where the $5,000 extra surplus come in to kind of help adjust that? Because if school regains or goes back in for next school year, we definitely know those amounts will go up, probably double.
Administration.
Yes. It's partially due to COVID and also partially due to change we made in the past few years due to our financial status. We weren't allowing any carry forwards of surpluses at all. This year we allowed up to $5,000, and that seemed to help. Schools were so intent on spending to their last dollar that they were actually creating a deficit. By doing this, it has helped schools to, just that little bit actually helped a number of schools not go into deficit.
Follow-up?
Chair Phillips, yep, this is the last one. If before they couldn't hold the surplus, did the surplus go to the bottom line, or were they just told at that point they had to spend what was surplus, or did it go back into just the general operating budget?
It would go back to general operating budget.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Chair Phillips and members of the committee, one of the things that we want to do, monies are earmarked for students that put this year that they're in. And we want our schools to make sure that they are spending that money on children and services that year. So, and in an effort to do that, we have a financial analyst that works along with them to help them to forecast. They're constantly meeting with their regional superintendent where they are. And then we also are constantly posting grant dates and things of this nature. So all of their dollars are spent for that academic school year.
All right. Thank you, Chair Phillips. Thank you, administration.
And Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
All right, what is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Miller.
Yes, I'm going to propose that we adopt the administration's recommendation. But before we do that, I just want to be, one of the things as a school leader and as a vice principal in charge, one of the things that happened with me before I retired was the way the system was set up at that time was very difficult to find out how much money at the end of the school year was being spent. So I was very, very conservative because I wanted to leave the district with a surplus, and the surplus I left was about $8,000, I thought. But by the time the whole thing played out, it ended up being much more than that in surplus that could have been spent on kids. So I think the system as it's set up now is much more efficient and better at actually spending the money that's needed by each institution. So with that, I do recommend adoption of the administration's recommendation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Director Miller's motion to adopt the administration's recommendation relative to a request to carry over FY20 school deficits and surpluses. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item number 6 is action on monthly finance matters. The report on emergency purchases due to COVID-19 and change orders in excess of $25,000 and their cumulative purchases in excess of $50,000. Acceptance of the reports of revenues and expenses, the monthly expenditure control report, the report on contracts under $50,000 and their cumulative totals, the report on monthly grant awards, and the acceptance of donations. The recommendation is that the board accept the donations as listed in the attachments to this item, with appropriate acknowledgements to be made on behalf of the board.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of the monthly finance item. Before opening it up for questions, I would like to offer my sincere gratitude to all our generous donors who supported our schools and our students this month. Together, they gave over $39,852 in donations. A big thank you to all of our donors this month. At this time, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have pertaining to this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comment or ask questions? Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have four individuals who are on the platform who have registered to speak on this item. Would you like to go to speakers right away?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the first speaker is Rick Kloss. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record. Rick Kloss. Okay. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hi, Rick Klaus, Klaus.
Thank you.
Chair Phillips and members of the committee, I'm Rick Klaus. I'm Vice President of Operations with Durham School Services. We're one of the many contractors that provide student transportation for Milwaukee Public Schools. As we looked at the agenda tonight on monthly statements, we don't see anything that addresses the lack of funding to the student transportation companies. So we want to make sure that the committee and the board are aware that we are not receiving any funding from Milwaukee Public Schools at this time. That's creating a great burden on our companies. We have laid off the vast majority of our employees. In my case at Durham, We have about 150 employees supporting MPS, and right now we only have 5 that are working. And given that the academic model in Milwaukee really relies on transportation, because
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Secretary.
just so that we are in compliance with state statute for noticing the items that we are speaking on, this item is related to monthly finance matters, and specifically the emergency purchases due to COVID-19, change orders, and other reports relative to
right. So
the
our
monthly finance matters.
point here is that there's nothing in the report about not paying contractors. There's nothing here to fund us for emergency funds due to COVID-19. We've asked administration for that. We're wanting to make sure that the board is aware and make sure that the board is aware of the risks to your transportation infrastructure that is inherent of not paying us. And we're asking for your consideration to fund us during these extraordinary COVID-19 times so that we can be ready to transport children when you need us.
Thank you. And I'll ask any of the speakers, if you wish to speak to this item, please try to relay your points specifically to what's attached. So emergency purchases due to COVID-19, change orders in excess of $25,000, cumulative purchases in excess of $50,000. So just wanted to interject that because we hate to interrupt people while they're speaking, but we do have a mandate that makes sure that we speak to the item at hand. So Madam Secretary, next speaker, please.
The next speaker would be Andrew Peterson. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Andrew Peterson, last name spelled Peterson.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair and committee, thank you again for giving us an opportunity to speak. I am Andrew Peterson. I am the area general manager with First Student, another one of your school bus contractors. And I will try to keep it precise to item 6. And in item 6 is attachment 2, which is the acceptance of the report of revenues and expenses. And in there, I would assume an expense that you would want to incur is an expense to pay your transportation providers. I would like to inform you that all of First Student's customers and all the school districts across the state that we service, even those like Green Bay that have gone back virtually, are paying their transportation provider at this time to ensure that they have transportation when they reopen school. I also want to inform you that 60% of the school districts across our country still do transportation in-house and are incurring the burden of this transportation cost. The 40% that have decided to outsource it, 85% of those are still paying their transportation provider. So 5%, only 5% of the school districts across this country have decided not to pay their transportation providers. In this revenue report, I'm sure you guys have received some of that $13.5 billion earmarked by the CARES Act, and 56 million of that revenue is going to MPS. So I understand we're living in unprecedented times and COVID is very challenging for everyone. Because of that, DPI has also adjusted the way in which they are funding school districts like MPS, and everyone's making adjustments in payments and funding. So I asked, why is MPS assumed that they don't have to show the same leniency that other school districts are to their transportation providers? And please consider what the long-term effects of this might be on your transportation costs and really getting services to your school and to your students and providing a higher level of education.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sherry Heim. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Sherry Heim, H-I-M-E.
Thank you.
Thank you. I represent the Wisconsin School Bus Association as their executive director. Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for this opportunity. I would like to speak to the report on revenues and expenses specifically the monthly savings in categorical aid expenses that are currently being experienced in part due to the non-payment of transportation provider contracts. We understand the country continues to experience unprecedented times tackling the situations of going back to school. However, since contracted transportation providers have not been compensated similar to this past spring, at least 1,000 employees have been laid off or furloughed. These are employees whose only job is to serve the school district. Some have been working for the schools for over 35 years. Every week, MPS delays running the school bus drivers, mechanics, aides, managers, trainers, safety dispatchers, critical office staff. They leave for other available work. There's been no discontinuation of state transportation aid funds, regardless of whether a school district is virtual or in person. Both the DPI and the LRB have confirmed that every school district in the state will continue to receive their normal funding as experienced based on prior year's counts. Yet the transportation providers are not receiving that intended funding to keep equipment and buildings operating, as well as people employed. In addition to the continued state funds, there have been additional federal CARES Act funding, where MPS received $56 million, with the assurance that the school district has been and will continue to pay employees and contractors in the same manner as before school closed. We are still in the same situation with COVID when COVID started, and it's out of every transportation contractor's control. Student transportation is an extension of the school district's responsibilities, and we urge you to consider the long-term impact
30 seconds.
of MPS's current decision to not pay bus contractors and what it will have on the communities and children it serves. Your transportation contracts represent 5% of your total expense budget. There are many schools in Wisconsin that started virtual or switched to virtual, and they are continuing to pay their transportation providers. MPS is the only district in the state not paying their transportation providers. We ask you to reconsider this.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mark Jordan. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Mark Jordan, Jordan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Mark Jordan. I am the president of both Lakeside Buses of Wisconsin and Dairyland Buses, MPS's largest school bus contractor. We have proudly served MPS for over 40 years and currently operate out of 3 Milwaukee terminals, representing over 500 loyal and dedicated employees whom live in Milwaukee, work in Milwaukee, and whose children attend Milwaukee public schools. For the past 4 months, my company and others like mine have been requesting, in fact, begging for conversation and assistance in helping to understand the MPS plan for school returning to in-classroom instruction, as well as continued financial support so we can maintain readiness for the reopening. Companies are being asked to financially support themselves without any continued payments from MPS, and we have reached a critical juncture where we can no longer continue to bear these financial burdens in the hopes that MPS will reach out to us with answers and/or a plan to reopen. All while we wait, we are being asked to continue to keep facilities open, maintain infrastructure expenses, paying notes on tens of millions of dollars of equipment, keeping our school bus fleet and facility insured, maintaining the fleet for state inspection and readiness, as well as driver credentialing and driver compliance with local, state, and federal laws. Drivers and staff will not remain as employees without assurances for work, while the demand for CDL drivers is at an all-time high. With applicant numbers at historic lows, replacing any CDL driver will take at least 12 weeks, assuming you have an applicant to replace the driver lost. The partnership level MPS displayed in the spring, paying 60% of the revenue, allowed us to emerge from the spring poised for school reopening. However, the lack of partnership this year placed a crushing financial burden, proving to be unsustainable. The request to continue self-funding has come to be too large to bear, and companies are being faced with the harsh reality that in less than 2 weeks' time, we'll have to permanently close facilities, which means permanent job losses to the many staff members that have serviced MPS faithfully, and will leave a void too large to be filled when student transportation becomes required to continue in the future.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that completes the public testimony for this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comment or ask questions? President Miller.
Thank you. A couple of things going on here that really concern me. One of these is that I feel like
We lost President Miller. Did everybody else lose him as well?
Madam Chair, it looks like President Miller is no longer on the platform. He's dialing back in.
I see.
There he is.
Yes. President Miller, you're back.
I'm back. Okay. So two things that are of concern to me. We're being villainized in this situation for bus companies that are, of all the speakers tonight, they're all non-union. And I guess that's a question I raised about them. If they truly care about their workers, they would put them in a better position to have a contract. So that's one thing. But the second thing is, they make it sound like these employees are without any finances. But if they laid them off, as they said they did, they get unemployment. Which through the course of my life as a factory worker, I received unemployment many times. Of course, I had to find other things to do, but I don't appreciate the attempt to villainize us when there are some very complex things going on. And I want to clear something. One of the speakers said that we get $56 million from the CARES Act. We actually got $56 million, but we had to share that with private schools. So we ended up getting $40 million, okay? And so 16 million of that went to private schools here in the city of Milwaukee, and 40 million went to try to deal with the whole variety of increased costs that we have for PPE, for feeding, at this point, 1.6 million breakfasts and lunches. I don't hear the bus companies saying they support that work that's going on, yet they're ready to, again, like I said, villainize us. I have a real serious problem with this showing up all of a sudden, and I have not been approached. I have not been talked to about any of this, and refuse to be in a position of being to look like the culprit in some sort of scheme or something. It's very problematic to me.
To the administration, I want to make sure that we stick with the monthly financial matters at hand, and would ask that perhaps the board be forwarded a report in relation to transportation and existing costs and things that have been paid out during this school year, just so that that board has that information, because I think that would be important for us to have. And as it stands right now, none of those contracts are part of this current item, and I don't really want to talk more about them. President Miller.
You're absolutely correct, Chair Phillips. I fell for the discussion. I apologize for that, but I do support what you're asking for, so that there can be some discussion at a future time on this issue. You're absolutely right. It is not on the agenda, and we should not have addressed it.
Do you have any further comments or questions in respects to the item at hand? All right, what is the pleasure of the board in respect to this item?
Madam Chair, I can't see Director Taylor's calendar. Director Taylor? I'm sorry, I can't see her camera.
Yeah, because
I have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm doing the raise the hand because my camera is going in and out. So
Okay.
I was just gonna thank you. I was just gonna ask for what Chair Phillips was asking for, some type of report in reference to contract, because I understand that was not on this item, but I would like to see that as well.
Great, thank you. So we need a motion in relation to this item.
You have Director Woodward on the platform.
Director Woodward? You're muted.
I move adoption of this administration recommendation, whatever it is.
All right, we've got a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Director Woodward's motion to adopt the administration's recommendation relative to action on the monthly finance matters. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
No. Aye.
And Chair Phillips.
Okay.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item number 7 is action on the award of the exception to bid contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the exception to bid contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. I have to quickly pass the gavel to Vice Chair Herndon. So, Vice Chair Herndon, thank you.
So noted.
I have the gavel.
Administration.
Vice Chair Herndon, members of the committee, we're happy to answer any question that you may have in regards to the exception to bid contracts that are before you this evening. Thank you.
Vice Chair Herndon, we do not have any public testimony on this item, so you can go right to the discussion of committee members.
Thank you. Are there any committee members that wish to speak on this item?
Vice Chair Herndon. Sorry.
Yes. Director Taylor.
Thank you. When we're talking about bidding contracts, given now that we're in COVID and we are delaying the opening of school, what effect, if any, does that have on bidding out contracts for certain things that are needed or that are not in action because we are not in school?
Thank you. Administration, would you like to respond?
Director, Vice Chair Herndon, Sierra Chesser, Acting Manager of the Department of Procurement and Risk Management. At this moment, when departments come to our office asking to request the bid, we take those bids on and we haven't had any issues in regards to any delays for COVID.
Director Taylor.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to know, going forward, do we see any challenges or anything in reference to having bids out there?
Sierra Chesser, Acting Manager of Department of Procurement and Risk Management. At this time, I don't foresee any challenges. We've had some bids that are just recently opened without any problems, and I don't foresee any in the future.
Thank you. Is there follow-up, Director Taylor?
No, thank you, Chair Herndon. I would just like to move approval.
Thank you. Could I get a motion on this item, please?
Madam Chair, Director Taylor's motion is to approve the administration's recommendation on the action on the award of exception to bid contracts.
Thank you. Madam Chair, please call the roll.
On Director Taylor's motion to approve the exception to bid contracts, Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. I will return the gavel to Chair Phillips.
Thanks so much. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 8, action on the award of professional services contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the professional services contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to make comments?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we are happy to answer any questions that you may have in regards to the contracts that are before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comment or ask questions? Vice Chair Herndon.
Thank you. My first question of administration is I want to know how this contract functions, or does it meet the requirements how does it meet the requirements outlined in our music policy 7.44, which we passed last November?
Herndon, members of the board, we have a number of different programs that are being offered through the conservatory. Through the RFP, 3 different organizations competed for the contract, and the conservatory was the one that offered the services that were most directly correlated to the policy. They are offering 12 different programs that are all based on the Wisconsin State Standards for Music. Most of them are based on general music in elementary, middle school, and instrumental in high school. So really building up those basic skills so that when the next phases take place, that those students will be ready for a certified music teacher.
Follow-up?
Yes, Madam Chair. I question that because I was looking at what was provided in 5th to 8th grade. And my concern is that those that may be in 5th grade when this starts don't get the music instruction that they need as they move forward into middle school.
Vice Chair Herndon, are you specifically talking about if students are first getting it in 5th grade and they have not gotten the services prior to that?
No, what I'm speaking of is because if we just want to go through this for K through 5th grade, music count, so that's like basic introduction to music, that and that type of thing. But then that goes to K3 through 5th grade, but then at the same time, there's a middle school component that I would hope, and the description seems to say that the students begin music instruction. So my concern is that those 5th graders that would be in a school that only offered the first item, wouldn't they be missing out if they move to middle school because they miss that 5th grade year, which is probably when they would get more training in 5th grade?
The document that I'm looking at is that music counts, the general curriculum is K3 through 5th grade.
Right.
And that would be the standards up through 5th grade. And then it continues on with the middle school instrument rotation, which is general music that goes 5th through 8th grade, which then follows, built upon those things that were taught in the original, the general music from K3 through 5th. So it's a sequentially based curriculum.
Okay, so what you're saying is that, say in a school that's K4, K5 through 5th grade, they would be getting the music counts, which is item number 1. What if it were K5 through 8th grade? Then it would be consecutive. Would that be a correct assumption?
We don't have any schools that would be K5 or 5th grade through 8th grade. We would have just the K5 schools, and there are very few of them that are actually in the position that they would be getting these contracted services. And then the middle school would be the 6th through 8th. So we don't have any programs that would be getting curriculum that would be 5th through 8th grade.
Okay, I question that because on the document, it says 5th through 8th grade as the middle school component. So you're saying it would be an actual middle school, not one K5 through 8, which we have many of those. How are those addressed then?
Those are then addressed by some of the instrumental programs that are continued on through in the attachment that you received. The 5th through 8th grade, the middle school, is that they're really looking at that 5th grade as kind of that catch-up year. So in case students that are in middle school, they would have that background. So 5th grade could go either through the K5 or through middle school, depending on what exposure they've had in the past.
Okay.
But there are a number of different things that people can select based on the middle school. As you can see, Many of the rest of the items are listed and adapted all the way from 5th grade or even kindergarten all the way through 12th grade based on the level of the individual students at that school.
Okay. And then lastly would be the drumming options. And it says K4 through 12th grade. Does that mean that it would only be applicable or students would only get exposed to that if they were in a school that were K4 through 12? Or how would we break that up?
I believe, according to what I have read, is that if that is something that is selected by the school leader, that the conservatory would adapt that based on the grade levels that they would be offering it to. A school may select multiple programs from actually this packet based on the cost. So there is a potential that a school would have multiple programs running within a building at the same time.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you. Thank you. So the bottom line is that our students would get exposure to instruction, which is very, very important because the one thing that we were looking at when we put this forth was to make sure that once students got to 9th grade, they would not be beginners. That is the main things so that they get an opportunity to expand upon the skills that they hopefully have acquired coming forward. So with that, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions by committee? Madam Secretary, do we have any speaker slips in respect to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Vice Chair Herndon.
I move that we accept the recommendation of administration.
All right, we've got a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Director Herndon's motion to approve the award of professional services contracts. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
And Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 9, action on monthly facilities matters, the FMS award of professional services contracts recommendation. The recommendation is that the board approve the attachment to this item relative to the professional services contract.
Does the administration wish to make comments?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval for facilities contract with green infrastructure upgrades at AAL, Allen Field, Bayview Montessori Upper Campus, Fratney, and North Division. Travis Lesney is here with me, and between the two of us, we can answer any question that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to speak or have questions on this item? Madam Secretary, do we have members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
There is no public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Miller.
I move adoption of the administration's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On Director Miller's motion to approve the administration's recommendation on the monthly facilities matters. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
And Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item number 10 is action on negotiated collective bargaining agreements with PAMPS, the Psychologists Association in the Milwaukee Public Schools, MTEA, the Milwaukee Teachers Association, the teachers and educational assistants and bookkeepers and accountants. The recommendation is that the board approve and adopt the collective bargaining agreements as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we have followed all processes and in accordance with state law relative to this agreement that is before you. And Mr. Jim Gordon is here with me, and we are more than happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments by committee members? Director Woodward?
Yes, in item 10, I have a question regarding the contract is already signed, and I wanted to know, I couldn't read the signatures, and it was signed 7/20 already in July, and I wanted to know who were the signers because I was unable to read the writing, and it was signed October 7th to 20th as the board who signed, for the board and for MTEA, and I had not seen this before.
Administration?
Yes, so Chair Phillips, members of the committee, my name is James Gorton. I'm the manager of employment relations. Up until yesterday, the day before, I was the acting director of employment relations. I am the person who signed it on behalf of the board. The MTA signature is Ben Ward. And so these agreements were signed to formalize agreements that had already been reached through informal discussions with the MTA and with PAMPS, and they were implemented July 1st. This is simply formalizing those agreements.
Follow-up, Director Woodward?
Yes, please. But you're asking for approval, but you've already signed the agreement, right? Is that it?
Director Woodward, Chair Phillips, yes, that is correct. That is the normal process where the administration will negotiate with the board, with the unions, and sign those agreements, and then submit them to the board for final approval. The board essentially approved them by increasing the wages of the employees. July 1st, effective July 1st.
Follow-up, Director Woodward?
Yes, well, I just don't understand, that we have to approve something that's already been signed, and you already signed a contract, and then you're asking for approval. So it just doesn't seem like that's a good way to do anything as far as it comes to the contract. And that is a 1-year contract, right?
The last step in the approval.
What she said?
Yes, this is a 1-year contract. This is the last step of the approval process. As my understanding, this has already been brought to the board in terms of agreeing to the wage increase, and we are simply implementing what's already been established in previously.
Okay, was there any additional? I noticed you stated highlights, and I read everything, so there's no additional things other than what you've indicated included in this contract.
Yes, that's correct.
Just the wages, that's it, right?
Just the wages.
That's right. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Administration, could you clarify that, how, I understand that this is coming to the board, but did this go through the budget process in May? So
yes, this went through the budget process in May. So this was effective July 1st, where we had already implemented this beginning July 1st. It's not a retroactive implementation.
Madam Secretary?
Director Taylor is in the queue.
All right, we've got Director Taylor followed by Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. I would like to move approval of this item and also state this is what came before us in May, the wages. But yeah, I would like to move approval of this item.
Thank you. We've got a motion. President Miller.
Yeah, I just want to say that we approved the wages in our budget process. That's what these wages are. But according to Act 10, wages are negotiated. So we do have to go to the bargaining units and come to a tentative agreement on how that wage money will be allotted, which is what we directed the administration to do. That's what they did, and now this is the final step in that process where we have to give our final approval. We must approve this for what we had directed them to do in the past.
Okay.
Director Woodward?
Yes,
Sure.
and one question, I noticed is 1.8 something, and I think in Act 10, they would be getting 2 point something. 2 point something was the amount that Act 10 gave them the opportunity to get in their wage increase, cost of living each year.
So
And I
Chair
know
Phillips,
it's
members of
81.
Chair Phillips, members of the committee, James Gorton, Employment Relations. The amount of increase is determined by the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission. It publishes a spreadsheet, and you can look it up if you Google it for WRC collective bargaining agreement wage increases. It's based on the CPI of each, depending on each year. And for this year, for July 1st, it was 1.81%. So that is the maximum amount allowable by law.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so we have a motion. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On Director Taylor's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to negotiated collective bargaining agreements. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item number 11 is a report with possible action on the 2020-21 salary schedules. The recommendation is that the board approve the salary schedules as attached to this item.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to make comment?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, in alignment with the increases approved by the board and effective July 1 of 2020, we are bringing forward the 2021 salary schedules, and I have Carol Eady here with me this evening, and we can answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have comments or questions by committee members? Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no speakers registered to speak on this item and no written testimony.
What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Miller.
I move adoption.
Well, it's a report with possible action. I apologize. So we don't have to take action. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, there is a recommendation. I believe the administration is requesting that action be taken, although it is a report and possible action.
Well, so I see approval of the administration's recommendation from President Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. And any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On President Miller's motion to approve the 2021 salary schedules. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Chair Phillips.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 12, which is a report with possible action on central regional staffing. And this is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the administration like to make comment?
Chair Phillips and members of the committee, the report that's before you is a follow-up on Resolution 2021R-005 regarding Central Region staffing. Deputy Superintendent Kevin Furman is leading this work and will provide a brief overview of where we are at this time. Calvin.
Good evening, Chair Phillips and members of committee, Calvin Furman, Deputy Superintendent. Last month when the board considered this resolution, it passed a motion to create a task force to look at hard to fill schools. And this presentation is the task force that has been created. I will chair this task force. Director Woodward, as the sponsor of the resolution, will be the board representative. We have representation principals from each region of the district. I do want to note that we did add one more, Dr. Marnie Donaldson Gamble, principal of La Follette, given some of the issues there. She was willing to participate as well. There will be parents from each of these schools, and for the middle school and high school, there will be student representation. We have an MTA representative, and then HR talent management staff will participate as well. Our first meeting will be later this month, October 29th, 2020, from 4 to 5 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting. There we will allow the task force members to meet each other. We'll review the charge of the task force as set out by the board. And then HR will provide an overview of the current staffing process. And then we'll set our process for next steps for the task force to meet and then ultimately arrive at recommendations for the board to consider. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Dr. Woodward, did you want to make comments as a member of this committee?
No.
All right. Do other committee members wish to make comment or ask questions? Madam Secretary, do you have, oh, go ahead, Director Taylor.
I'm sorry. I know they're saying they're doing an update. Did I see something about having some type of meeting later on in October? Is that to kind of bring all of the people that will be on board or part of the committee together, or is that the next step?
Administration?
Chair Phillips, members of the committee, Director Taylor, that is correct. It'll be the first meeting of this task force as has been laid out, and a chance for them to get together and lay out what the charge will be and how to proceed and making recommendations to the board on this item.
Any follow-up, Director Taylor?
Yeah, when they say make a recommendation to the board, is there a time frame to this as well? So when the recommendation will be made to the board about the findings, sorry.
Administration?
Chair Phillips, members of the committee, Director Taylor, there was no set time frame set out. The motion did call for monthly updates, so this will be brought monthly at present. But the goal is for the task force to fully analyze the situation and come with meaningful recommendations. So there is no hard deadline, but as soon as the task force has reviewed and has recommendations, we will bring it forward to the board.
Follow-up?
No, thank you, Chair. I'll just look forward to the updates. I have some school in the central area as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, we asked about, did we ask about members of the public that wish to speak?
We have no public testimony on this item.
All right. Any further comments or questions by committee members?
Yes.
Director Woodward.
But it doesn't require action.
Yes, and did you have any other comments?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, seeing that this item requires no additional action, Madam Secretary, what is the next item in tonight's agenda?
The next item is item number 13, a report with possible action on the school nutrition program. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to start us off with a presentation?
Yes, Chair Phillips and members of the committee, we end this evening's AF&P agenda with our school nutrition program update. At this time, I will ask Mr. Omar Abdullah to begin the presentation, and after which we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Omar.
Hi, Chair Phillips, members of the committee. This is Omar Abdullah, Director under Phil School Nutrition Services. I'm here to present our school nutrition report. Despite COVID-19 pandemic, we are committed and we are providing meals to our students and community. We are really working hard to keep this going. We started back in March of 2020 with 25 locations for our distribution sites. and we have increased those to 50 locations with the start of our new school year in September 2020. In addition to the number of locations, we are constantly looking at ways to increase the amount of time for distributing meals at our stop, grab, and go locations. Since the pandemic started, our department has distributed more than 1.6 million meals to our students and families in our community. We have served more than 650,000 breakfasts, more than 660,000 lunches, and 338,000 snacks, and 16,000 plus dinners during this time. In addition to serving meals to our students and community, we have distributed other items with the coordination and collaboration with the community partners. We distributed food items, hygiene kits, masks, books, jump ropes, informational handouts, etc. As you can see, the number of donors and organizations that we have worked with, includes Feeding America, Clements, MPS Foundation, MKE Mask, American Heart Association, Hunger Task Force, Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, Children's Wisconsin. And lastly, we participate in the United States Department of Agriculture program, Fresh Fruit and Vegetables program. Under this program, we are offering or providing produce bags for our students and families every Thursday during the month of October at our distribution sites. Along with these produce bags, our registered dietitians provide recipes and nutritional facts about the items included in these produce bags. During this month, we celebrated different cultures through this program, and we celebrated Hispanic culture, European culture, Asian culture, and African American culture. Those were our themes each week during this month of October. And in addition to the produce bags, our supervising dietitians also are preparing videos that can be found at mpsmke.com/fresh fruit program, where they show how to make different food utilizing the produce that's available in the bags that we are distributing. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comment or ask questions? Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this report and all the work that's been going on. I know that it's very meaningful to a lot of families, and I hope to get that bag of produce this Thursday. And I guess the question to that is, who can get those bags of produce on Thursdays this month?
Anybody who has a child in their household, whether they are MPS students or not, as long as they're a member of our community, they can come and get one of those bags.
Thank you. President Miller.
Yeah, I just want to thank administration and food services for doing the Thursday distribution. I think it's a great idea. This is the first I've heard of it, and I'm just I'm elated by it. I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Director Woodward.
I thought I got a notice saying that it would only be for the children at this time. At first they were doing it to families, but they changed it from just the children getting the lunches and going back to all families getting them.
Administration.
Chair Phillips, members of the committee, it's only for children now, 18 years and under, but they don't have to be MPS students. They can be, any school or member of the community. As long as they are 18 and under, they can get the meals as well as the fresh fruit and vegetables produce bag.
So follow up.
Yes, Director Woodward, go ahead.
Okay. I also got something saying that it would be only for MPS students, and I have a copy of it. And because I did advertise it on my show, and that's why I'm concerned. I got it in writing from MPS website, and it did say that that would only be for MPS students, and also it said that it would be for children only. And I got the whole program here that is something different. So I'm just trying to figure out where we're getting dual information being placed on the portal.
Administration.
Chair Phillips and committee members, I believe that information originally came from when we switched from summer food program to national school lunch program. There was some timing difference because we switched to national school lunch program because there was no direction from USDA about extending this program, the summer food service program. So during that short period of time, it was limited to MPS students when we started the school year with the national school lunch program. But as soon as we got the waivers from the USDA, we switched back to the summer food service program, and that is not limited to MPS students only.
Follow up.
I'll have to revisit the list and I see what date that was put out. I know it was in the October. I did it on October the 5th. Is when that came out. It was for the October 5th is when that report was out for the week of that week. So thank you.
All right. Seeing no other further comments or questions by committee members, Madam Secretary, what's the next item on tonight's agenda?
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll see everyone for the special board meeting next Thursday.
5:30.
Bye now.
Good evening.
Bye.